story is going to be the most profitable product in the next 10 years. Because everything else AI will do and it will commoditize.
Sure.
We are all just going to sit and either make stories or consume stories. There is this entire industry now that doesn't understand, has no formal education in storytelling.
Yeah.
And because in India there is no storytelling course itself.
Yeah.
We are very westward looking. So when we consume content, we have a especially the English speaking population has a bias towards the West that is not justified anymore. Okay, the best cutting edge kind of storytelling today is happening on the east side of India, not on the west side of India. All the Yash Chopras and Karan Johars of the world told us that we are the kings of romance.
Mm-hmm.
And we have not been able to export it to the whole world.
Yeah.
And Korea stole a march on us, and they have taken that genre to the whole world.
Hello and welcome to Your Heart's Content,
a YouTube show where we're going to look at the aspects of content that really matter, the thought processes, the systems,
and the inspiration.
I'm your host, Deepak Gopalakrishnan, aka Chuck, and
I'm Utsav.
in this show, we are going to be speaking to some people who think deeply about the space of content,
Creators, musicians,
folks in the business of content, all in a bid to try and understand this space of content a little better.
and how you could benefit from it. In this episode, we speak to Kunj Sanghvi. He is the head of content at Kuku FM. Not only is Kunj a 4-time published author, but he also takes decisions about content which millions of people consume across India. He's one of the rare breed of people who have seen content as a creator and as a business. We spoke to Kunj about the kind of content that resonates with people from different states of India, how the elite of India often get content creation wrong, and how the entire industry of content creation is actually operating quite inefficiently. We also talk about how generative AI is changing the landscape of content creation, and the future lies in one-person media companies. I know all this sounds a little incredible or even incredulous, but this is the reason you need to tune into this wide-ranging conversation with Kunj. I assure you, the insights might just blow you away. So let's tune in. Welcome to the show, Kunj. Thank you so much for making time to speak with us.
Really excited to be here, guys.
Thank you.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I want to start off with a lesser known fact about you. I have very credible sources which tell me that you have 125 cows, 4 apartments, and you ride a motorcycle in your house because it's so big that you use a vehicle to go from one room to the other. We did not know that you came from and you built up so much wealth for yourself. How did that happen?
It happened because I got a couple of friends to stay at my grandparents' house once upon a time.
Okay.
And they made up these stories, and then they were...
Oh, should we edit this out because the income tax department and related wealth issues of...
That being said,
You think I can't handle that? If I have so much wealth, I think I'll be able to handle
speak
income
of the
tax.
power of storytelling.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking. No, because these stories I have known since the year 2008 or 9.
Yes.
Right. And since then, you can imagine Kunj is a smart guy, Gujarati living in Bombay, must have multiplied the number of cows.
Not anymore in Bombay.
Now you're in Bangalore.
I had to come down to Bangalore for a Gujarati guy. That has been a big change.
Oh, yes. Don't think you have a problem because the number of times you can be spotted at Arogya Ahar.
Yes.
Eating dosa at 4 p.m. Don't complain about things which are not problems. This is just such a first world thing.
The
Oh, I have to move.
The dosa is different. I can't help it. The dosa is just thicker. It's too
It is
laden with
amazing.
ghee.
There is no question.
The
about
thinner dosa in Bombay is much better for me. So I sometimes cross the border and go into Tamil Nadu. There is a Murugan Idli there just to eat the dosa there because that is the right kind of dosa.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
This episode is getting cancelled in Bangalore at least.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially following what we had just done. With Rajat.
But anyway, but okay, Kunj. All jokes apart, I want to ask you about you're the author of 4 books, right? And But the first one, right, which really sort of brought your writing into a much larger public, was this book called Side Upper. Why was it called Side Upper, and what is the story of writing that book?
I will start by saying that book didn't get my that was not the largest amount of public I got for anything, was not the book.
Okay.
It was the blog post that I would write that would get 1,500, 2,000 views compared to the book that would have sold about 1,500 copies.
Okay.
So that is the reality. And I will come back to this idea of publishing a book and
getting an audience,
the value of it and all those sorts of things later. But yeah, at that time, that was the thing, right? Like it felt like to show my intellectual prowess, or I'm of some value, or some kind of content creation that is possible from me, some kind of expression is possible from me. I wanted to take that kind of a plunge. I wanted to take a break from my corporate career and travel across India and find inspiration. The romantic idea of it, of course, was exciting, but when you get through it and when you're in month 2, month 3 and you realize that you've been lonely for really long, it's a little disturbing, but that's when you find newer areas of growth. And I went to cities which I had never been to, and I noticed things about it and I wrote stories about it. Being able to write, put words together in a sequence one after the other for 1 lakh words, 1,20,000 words, sets you up for any career in content as you go along, because you've done the building blocks of it. So being able to do that again and again and again at different stages of your career is important, which is why I have written 4 books, and I want to keep creating content even when you are in a corporate setup where you're running an organization where you don't get to do the nitty-gritty of it every time. You don't get to get into an individual story and fix something specific there, because the craft there is wrong. Not the QA. The QA is fine, but craft is much more valuable than the QA. So you don't get to do that. So you miss that time when you got to do it, and you have empathy for the guy who was actually doing it at that time. So that is why that experience was valuable, and it kind of shaped my career from then on.
Before you go further, can you just elaborate on that? I thought that is a beautiful line that you just said. The craft is more important than the QA. That's clearly a line that you have thought of before, and there are probably incidents that have led to this. So can you just elaborate on that? I thought that was a lovely observation.
So the thing is that, and again, this is going to become more important in the context of AI, which is another thing I would want to touch upon. Today it feels like, you put technology on top of things and everything can be automated. But the origin of the thought, being a human being coming up with a creative idea, is very important for the rest of it to make sense. Without that, the rest of it doesn't make sense. And this world is going to get crowded by the rest of it. It's going to be billions and billions of bits of rest of it.
Yeah.
And its value is going to be nothing. But the original thought that the creator is coming with, that is craft. Okay, and everything that you do in terms of like making a checklist and saying, are these all things right, which is what AI will be able to do and will be comprehensive in that, is QA. And I'm saying that craft is really valuable. Without that, there will be no distinction in the crazy amounts of stories that are going to come our way over the next decade.
What do you mean by QA?
Quantitative, a qualitative check.
Yeah, I know.
A quality assurance kind of a thing.
Yeah. So we call it QA in our
all right.
In our work we call it QA.
Yeah, sure.
So that's how it is. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, right? Like one of the things we have spoken about before is, at least one of my beliefs is, especially for those who are graduating in this decade with the onset of AI, Gen AI specifically, 2 skills that are going to be very important are the ability to give a machine high quality instructions and the ability to gauge the outcome of a machine. Now, whether it's to use the outcome for generating a business plan, or whether it is to, judge, okay, is this AI generator or not, or whatever. In some sense, that's kind of like what you're saying, right? Which is, in some sense, what you're kind of saying is that the craft over here has now become the ability to give a good input. Right, you can't have
craft is imagination. Being able to, convert into a language that your co-writer, which is the Gen AI, understands.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two things that now become important are you sharpening your imagination
Yeah.
and finding wilder ways to go in different directions.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that is very important,
Again, judging the output.
no, is to then have the formal structures to prompt the AI to create
Got
that
it.
for you.
Yeah.
So for that, like, there is this entire industry now that doesn't understand, has no formal education in storytelling.
Yeah.
And because in India, there is no storytelling course itself.
Yeah.
In India, what you have is either marketing courses, or if you have English literature courses, they are about creative appreciation. They are not about creative storytelling. They are not about creation. Okay. And sorry, what was the point?
We were just talking about.
No, so you're talking about the fact that one thing which people need is sharpening of the imagination.
Imagination and the language to be able to communicate with the AI. So whether it is Midjourney, whether it is ChatGPT or Claude or the hundreds of other things, even 11 Labs, the way we use it, there is a formal structure now to language that needs to be used. There is a formal structure to grammar. So if you put, why was grammar invented? Because grammar was supposed to be heard. When you read a sentence and you see proper grammar in it, you can hear the music of that sentence. And that is how 11 Labs takes the input. If your grammar is immaculate, it will produce the voice of that sentence perfectly. So that is why now that formal structure is important, which wasn't for the last few years. Most of our industries run on, stuff like the chief creative producer saying that मेरे को लग रहा है thumbs up है, and stuff is commissioned. Okay, crores and crores of rupees are commissioned. The success rate of this industry is 1 to 2%. And yet it continues to run like this. I'm talking about the OTT industry, the media industry, the whole storytelling industry runs at a success rate of 2%. And yet they are not adopting to these ideas that AI is bringing in. I'm saying irrespective of AI, you should have these kinds of setups in place where you're looking at a formal structure of, say, crime. Okay, crime is a genre. Now break it down into every nuance of the genre and look at, have you tried every nuance of the genre as a portfolio in your business? And then figure out what is it that is working. All of these tools, because of digital marketing on the one side and formal structures on the other side, exist now. But I don't think the media industry does enough. I'll tell you one more thing, okay? Yeah. Sorry, I'm taking this conversation in a direction.
Please, that's what is supposed to be.
So I've spent a lot of time spent some time in Korea and spent a lot of time talking to creators and web novel publishers in Korea. Okay. And what I have figured out is that is what we are finding missing in our country, which is the storytelling infrastructure. Academia and business giving storytelling that space. Koreans have found that space. The most aspirational career over there is to become a web novel writer. Okay, it's crazy. Imagine this. Imagine a creative career like this, where there is no guarantee of a salary coming in every day, is being, their cutoffs are higher than the engineering and the math kind of degrees in Korea. It's crazy. And that is why it has been able to export a genre that was supposed to be owned by us. All the Yash Chopras and Karan Johars of the world told us that we are the kings of romance. And we have not been able to export it to the whole world. And Korea stole a march on us, and they have taken that genre to the whole world. In every cultural context, whether it is Spain, whether it is Turkey, whether it is Africa, whether it is US, UK, everywhere the Korean content is being adapted, and it's super successful.
You are saying storytelling and all that from the context of the entertainment industry, but I would put forth an argument that it is as important for the so-called left-brain industries, because those have been dulled to a degree where there is like a lot of banality. So just to give you one example or something that I read about recently, in the 1930s, when stocks were being IPO'd for the first time, and of course this is the US market, the equation was like 20% narrative, 80% financials, right? And today, if you look at the kind of companies that are going public, it's kind of like the reverse completely, right? It's really all about the narrative. Look at the guys who are able to raise. But now, whether you believe in that story or not, it's a completely different matter. We can criticize the, blitzscaling and all that of some companies, but that's really not the point. The point is that it's become more important. In fact, one of at least the people who I look up to from a marketing point of view, Professor Scott Galloway, he's often fond of saying that the most important skill for CEOs and fresh graduates alike in this decade, and it goes back to the point of Gen AI, is storytelling.
It's taste. He's written a beautiful article on taste.
On taste, right? But he often says that, taste is important to cultivate, but the most important skill for CEOs is going to be storytelling. And I find that so counterintuitive in one way, but so fascinating. It's really about that. It's not just storytelling to investors, but also for the employees. If you want to attract talent to come and work on this new cockamamie technology that might work or not, you really want to spin a narrative about how you can change lives or a country or whatever. So I agree with you. There's no question really, but absolutely, agreed with that.
So actually, what you just said about, guys talked about taste, right? And in the beginning you talked about sharpening of imagination. But I feel that to sharpen your imagination, you also need to expose yourself to a lot of stuff which you can consider high taste, low taste. I'm not really interested in that debate in any form. But my other challenge also is that, I think, I don't remember who said this, but it said that most of the content we consume today has been created in the last 72 hours, right? So the question of having created something of value, where someone has taken their imagination and really worked on their craft and brought out something. How many of us are consciously consuming that at, I won't say at scale, but in a significant form, that it can sharpen our imagination? Imagination doesn't get sharpened in a vacuum.
Yes. No, that is a... You're talking about a structure of a content diet.
Content diet. Oh, that's a great way. Yeah, great.
Like what kind of diet means that... And I'm not talking about the diet of a normal guy, okay? I'm talking about the diet of a creator, the diet of a guy who wants to be in the content industry. That is a thing I feel very deeply about, okay? That I need to be consuming certain genres, certain kind of cultures, certain kind of long format content types, because it is important for a balanced diet of that to understand what all is happening in different industries. Okay, and that's something that can be designed by us. I'll tell you one of the things in which we are terrible. We are very westward looking. So when we consume content, we have a especially the English speaking population has a bias towards the West that is not justified anymore. Okay, the best cutting edge kind of storytelling today is happening on the east side of India, not on the west side of India. Okay, it brings back my point about Korea, but it's not just about Korea. It's about Japan. The whole what is Korea? Korea has brought the manga culture from Japan and understood the Mills and Boon obsession of the US and created the webcomic culture, which it has then exported to the whole world.
Summed up by the way.
So that's what it is. But I am saying that even China has a deep culture now. You will not believe this, but there are 20 million kids in India who have published a web novel by now. That is 10 million more than the TG of most businesses in India today.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. And I have met kids because we are hiring them. Miranda House grads who have just passed out. She's written her first web novel at the age of 13. She's written web novels that have 2 million, 3 million reads by now. Okay. And within the same English industry, when you go more senior people, they are all Arundhati Roy wannabes. They don't want to do commercial work. They don't want to do scalable work. They want to be intellectuals who want to pontificate in fancy rooms. Okay. And then they crib about them not getting jobs. And then they are in dead-end jobs in publishing industries where they shouldn't be. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. Story is going to be the most profitable product in the next 10 years. Nothing is going to be more profitable because everything else AI will do and it will commoditize.
So, yeah.
We are all just going to sit and either make stories or consume stories. So, we need to shift that focus to this and be very good at it, all of us.
No, and I think what you said about people wanting to be Arundhati Roy's lookalikes or wannabes, which is fine as long as you want to do it as a personal pursuit of...
No, I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about...
I'm talking about personal
craft.
pursuit of art.
Haan.
Saying that I want to write. But then to say that, no, because I write in a certain way, the world should like it.
Yes.
Is an irrational expectation.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Right? Because one thing you have to be very, very clear that, and in fact, it goes back to the point of distinction between content and art, content versus art we were having with a guest yesterday, which is to say that content is created for a purpose. Right? Art could be personal. Art could be for art's sake.
Correct.
But content is created for a purpose. And that purpose could be monetary, could be brand building, could be lead generation, for example, or anything of that sort.
Dude, if first 5 seconds of an ad are important, they are important. Now you can't write the slogans. So move on. This is the reality. This is the universe that the user is consuming it in. He is so free with his finger, he can move on from your ad anytime he wants.
Yeah.
So why are you being so egoistic about still writing ads?
2-minute films.
Yeah, why are they written like that? They shouldn't be written like that. I tell my team, how can you say that because you're writing a 3-hour show, your first minute can be shoddy. Your first minute cannot be shoddy. That is the only time you're going to get from the user.
Because that is the consideration span of a user today to choose to decide
exactly.
to watch
because
further.
the proliferation, मैं को क्यों ऐसे words बोलता हूँ? जरूरत ही नहीं है.
The excess of content.
Yes, the excess of content is going to be such that it is pointless, this kind of a pursuit. I will tell you how content is, like, when you break down the content today, for a generation with short attention spans, if you want to make long form content, you have to make it in a very simple structure, okay, which is, you can have an overall plot arc. Okay, but you have to have season-wise arcs as well.
Sure.
Then you have to have episode-wise arcs as well. And then you have to have segment-wise arcs as well. So your arcs have to start and finish in 5 minutes. And then you do that again and again and again. That's how you make a 1,000-minute show now. So you have to have payoffs very fast. You can't have slow burns that are turning around after a point of time. You can't get the hero to go through misery for too long. The audience will not stay. So storytelling has changed, and and all the signs are there. You can go and look at the Facebook ads account of anybody today. Please go and see. I will tell everybody to do
ad
that.
library, yeah.
Just go and see the ad library and you'll see what kind of ads are working, and you'll instinctively know what is the storytelling formats that are working, and have the humility to see it. The problem is that we don't, as creators, this lofty idea of us being artists and all the airs that come with being an artist, we lose our humility of seeing what the audience is clearly telling you. And because of data, you are able to understand that. We are so full of pride that we are not even putting in our best foot forward to understand data. We say we are language people. I am a man of words. I don't understand numbers. Dude, that is a problem. It's not. Fix it. It's important. And I tell engineers that you don't tell me that I am not a creative guy. Don't tell me, अरे ये तो creative चीज़ है, आप देख लो. It's a problem. तू human being है, तेरे को दोनों चीज़ें दी हुई है.
Correct. No, that's absolutely true. Why are you labeling yourself as non-creative? So, for example, one of the things I always tell people is that as a child you drew, right?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You may have stopped drawing for a variety of reasons, but that doesn't make you uncreative.
Correct.
Right? We all have written something as a child.
Absolutely. We all came with imaginations and ideas and thoughts
and for a variety of reasons, if we have chosen to suppress it or has gotten suppressed owing to circumstances, doesn't label us as uncreative. You can say I'm uncreative in a certain period or for a certain period of time. But to label your own self as say I'm uncreative is actually a disservice to yourself more than anyone else.
It's a reluctance to, it's laziness. What else?
I want to take one of the things that you said, Kunj, and you said like the payoff has to be immediate, even sort of like in a long format and all that sort of thing. And fair enough, I see where you're coming from. And in the context of, say, a show on Netflix or whatever, I understand where you're coming from, right? I am one of those guys who dropped off in season 1 of The Office, so I get where you're coming from. But here's another way of looking at it. At least I'd like to think a lot of the content that I consume, and you as well, is very long form, which doesn't have those immediate payoffs.
Yes.
Like Amit Verma's show, for example, doesn't have payoffs that immediately. So I'm trying to reconcile these two. And is it a matter of thinking? Like, if I were presented the format, I'm just using Amit Verma's show as an example. Of course, we can take New Yorker long forms or, whatever, big books or whatever as substitutes for that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I have sort of like bought into the overall philosophy of this, or say the overall creator or the person behind this. And I trust that person. Correct. If I invest my 4 hours, I may not get immediate payoffs, but I am going to be overall richer at the end of this, right? So, I mean, these are two, again, there is no question over here, but I just want to...
No, that's a very good point you bring up. I'll tell you why. By the way, big fan of Amit Verma. I listen to all his podcasts. He is the way I would want to do all my work, the way he does his podcast. Okay, it's awesome. But I will tell you something. Okay, you have to earn the user's trust.
You have to earn, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
That is what it is. So I am a new medium, for example. I have to do that constantly as Kuku FM because we are an audio medium. People don't have audio storytelling integrated into their lives. Okay, we have always been we had no community radio history. Very little, as in we
only had government radio.
Yeah, there was no profitable model to run community radio where innovations are constantly happening. So all of it is music radio that we've come from. So I'm forming a new habit. At that time, I have to earn the user's trust. So at that time, I will do stuff that the user feels like is lower hanging fruit. So it means pulpy stories.
Yeah.
Okay. It means stories with quick tropes getting turned around. Stories which very clearly bring out the insight of my audience.
Yeah.
That a rags to riches trope is going to work.
Yeah.
A wishful situation where he's suddenly a billionaire is going to work. Okay. And his relationship with women is going to be, questioning that, why am I the victim here kind of a situation. Now, those things exist. And you have to get him to consume this content, and then over time he consumes a lot of other content once he forms the habit for that format. Then he will go to your platform to listen to the cricket commentary also. He's going to your platform to listen to a storyfied version of Bhagavad Gita also. He's going to your platform to listen to a storyfied version of Psychology of Money also.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of other things he will do. But first, to get him there, see, any technology in this world, in media especially, has first come through porn, and then it has come through gaming, and then it has gone to all these exalted genres that we have that are intellectually stimulating. Okay, it starts from a physical need.
Yeah.
And if the media is able to crack that, it has then been able to crack other.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's gone from primal to entertainment.
Exactly. Uska khud ka Maslow's hierarchy.
Yeah. Bilkul. You remember that scene in Silicon Valley where all the, this is a very common myth. I'm not going to say it's a myth. It's actually, there's a fair bit of truth to it, is that porn has created the internet and all, has pushed technology forward. There's an entire conference where you had all these serious people in suits and ties coming together from the porn industry with all kinds of weird names that were representing, the hilarious scene over there. But anyway, it just reminded me when you said that. But yeah, absolutely. Everything from credit cards to virtual reality to webcams to streaming, everything started because of porn. Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to touch upon another thing earlier that you were talking about. The thing is, you go outside and everything is shit, okay? The roads are shit, the weather is shit, the people are bad, the Uber is
cancelling
on you.
Yeah.
It's just like our external physical infrastructure. You make as many tunnels as you want, you're not going to be able to fix our physical infrastructure from here on, okay? So we are going to be inside our houses, okay? And we are going to be very, very intimate with our media choices, and we are going to go very, very deep into long hours of consumptions. Okay. We've had users who consume like one show for 8 hours, 9 hours. Wow. He would have consumed in one sitting. Okay. We have a show called Secret Billionaire. Every day we release 20 episodes of 10 minutes each of it. And still हम गाली खाते हैं कि तुम क्या 20 में stop कर रहे हो, तुम 50 क्यों नहीं release कर सकते. And now we have to figure out how we're going to be able to do it, because that demand exists. There is time, there is access, and there is willingness to put so much time into consuming content. So, but the point for the creators is that, dude, become single person media companies very, very quickly now.
Yeah.
Use AI. You truly can deliver one novel every weekend if you want to. Today it is possible to make and that this is a project I am thinking of taking, although I don't see where the novels will go, because publishing industry is
in a different zone altogether.
Exactly. But it is possible to make that long format. You can make a film script in a weekend. What else do you want? Like that is possible today. So you have to be prolific now. You have to be Stephen King into 10 to be successful as a creator in today's world, because AI is going to just speed up everything. So if you have to do that, you have to be, यार तुम इतना सारा टाइम पहले सोचते थे, फिर लिखते थे, फिर एडिट करते थे, उस पर डालते थे ना. अभी लिखने का और एडिट करने का काम चला गया है. अभी तुम्हें सिर्फ सोचना है, ठीक है, और बात करना सीखना है उससे. So then can you put in that much time? Do you have that much energy, that depth of imagination, that ambition to think of so many different iterations of a story? Because you will be able to create it. AI will be able to create it for you. But that's the competition now. So
the competition you are saying is on the imagination.
Yes. So that is going to be the challenge from here on. Like you can't, for example, if I was telling you guys are starting a YouTube channel, I am saying from day one, it has to be available in 20 languages. It is possible to do that today.
Absolutely. YouTube allows you to do that straight
Exactly.
away.
So, like, I'm saying those kinds of things we have to start thinking about constantly as creators now. It can't be that, oh, I'll start small and I'll do this and that, and not even starting small. The ones who are deep into the industry and putting out X number of videos a week have to move to 10X videos a week. And then the world will find you. So, yeah.
That's food for thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this thing about,
I'll tell you, sorry, because I said that, I will tell you why, okay. When I joined this company 2 years ago, because of the demand I could see and how the things were set up, we were producing some 10,000 minutes a month. Okay, that is also a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Right now, last month we produced 1 lakh minutes a month.
Wow.
And this month we will produce 1,50,000 minutes a month, and next month we will produce 2,50,000 minutes a month.
And it's being consumed.
And it's consumed.
It's not really just being put out there and no one's really...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that.
It's not that. It's being consumed. That kind of volume of content is being asked for and it is consumed. The moment you move from a 1 hour show to a 5 hour show, you are seeing that immediately your retentions are improving.
Wow.
You look
retentions are improving.
Yes.
So
you look at the Netflix data. Okay. You look at the Netflix data, you'll notice that all the shows that Netflix has gotten the most number of minutes consumed on are all long format seasonal OTT shows. Of course, there is a bias to it. They generally are longer shows. But even if you look at the number of people who have consumed these shows, these are all long format seasonal shows. Stranger Things and Money Heist. And why are there so many spin-offs of Money Heist? People just want to be in that universe now. They just want an excuse to be in that universe. Like, why is there a Game of Thrones spin-off and then there is going to be another one? People love to be in these universes because your physical infrastructure is so shit. Give me a universe that I can belong to. I've spent like 6 hours watching Rebel Moon last night, back to back, the two movies. And yeah, I just want to be in that world now.
Which is why I think we were having a discussion the other day that the most successful films are all the franchisees who have created a universe.
High fantasies.
High fantasies, right? I mean, that is one reason probably why Harry Potter continues to be such a big universe and people care for it even as children and grew up and even care for it as adults.
Yeah, because the number of hours I have spent in that universe are just astronomically bigger than the number of hours I would have spent on, say, Baby's Day Out or Terminator or, Die Hard or whatever would have come. Okay, even though Die Hard had so many sequels, even then I have spent more time on Harry Potter because I have read the books, I watched the movies,
played the games,
bought merchandise,
bought games,
figured out which house I'm a part of, the quiz,
gone to Oxford and bought merchandise from there for Slytherin sweatshirt and all that shit people do. So that is why this is a pure IP game from here on. As in for our industry, I know that you guys are talking about a wider industry where there is ads as well, there is non-fiction, YouTube creation as well. But for fiction, I feel the whole way is going to be IP creation. Okay, you create a great world, and then you create spin-offs and sequels and prequels, and you keep running it till the time you can find audience appeal for it.
No, that's so interesting. And this is a complete aside, but I see parallels. A few years back when there was that disastrous conversation about the metaverse possibly becoming a thing, I remember reading somewhere that one of the major career roles in the latter half of this decade, and this is a time when the metaverse was still maybe not kind of those things, was world building.
Yes.
Which is digital architect.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, makes sense, because you have kids who are building universities in Roblox and having digital convocations because they can't do it live during COVID.
Right.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense to me. Like one of my friends actually markets Unreal Engine in India to corporates, and I see where this comes in. But you are now saying it from a content point of view, like build these universes, invest in these characters.
When I was looking at my next career move, the other industry I was looking at was gaming, and I was like, can I become a game designer?
Sure.
Is that something that I can get into? Because I was like, I need to be in world building.
Yeah.
That's the space where I think this whole world is going to go into. Okay, and metaverse will eventually come. I want to be very good at world building. So what are the formats where I can do that? Okay, and one of the formats was gaming, because gaming literally you can do world building. That is why the so many great IPs have come from games and then become successful as
films
and shows and all those kinds of things. Witcher, John Wick, bunch of examples, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, this reminds me one thing, okay? The first book that I tried to write was about this. Basically, I don't remember what the book was about, but there was this concept in that there are storytellers who sit in God's office, okay? And as and when people are getting born, they are writing stories of their lives for them. So they go attached with that, okay? And today, that is what is going to happen. This is going to be a career, right? This is a single person media company. I am sitting. I can make a film by myself from now on. Okay? And I'm going to become a storyteller. That's going to be a job now. Uska koi bhi designation le lo. They're going to be world builders. They will make a story. They will produce it as toons. They will produce it as video. They will produce it as a Pixar animation film. All of it by themselves. They will be able to put it on a platform and monetize it, and they will earn money that way. And their co-pilot is not 5 other technicians. Their co-pilot is the AI that they are working with.
Sure. Yeah. It's very interesting when you say world building. I know you meant it in the sense of, say, game design. I meant it in the form of virtual.
Lord of the Rings.
But, I mean, again, at a very deep level, that applies to almost any piece of content that you subscribe to, right? For example, like let's take Amit Verma itself. If you listen to that content before, there's a certain world that you're entering, right? Like similarly, and it could be with respect to, say, performance as well. Yesterday we spoke to Jishnu from Swaratma, and if you've seen Swaratma before and you're going to a show, that there's a certain kind of ethos, world, vibe, if I may, that you're kind of that you're kind of getting into. And we hope that, for example, people who might be stumbling across this or one of the other interviews, when they see the first 3 minutes of it, they get a sense in their head, okay, is this tilting very serious? Is this tilting very funny? It's almost like they say, right, the brain is trying to process 30,000 decisions a day, and it's trying to make sense of the world for you in some sense. Right. I get where this is going. So world building could be at a very actual level, like in gaming or architecture or immersive physical experiences. But I suppose it also works at a very basic level for any kind of creator. What's the world that you are trying to, even if you're just making reels, even if you're just putting out tweets, what's the world that you're trying to get people into? Because I believe that when you consume content, especially fiction, and actually mostly fiction, there's always suspension of some disbelief.
Right.
That you're entering.
You want escapism.
You want escapism, right? And I believe that even in non-fiction, that escapism might be there, because
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I will tell you something.
Yeah,
okay.
go for it.
Self-help.
Yeah.
and romantic love story serve the same purpose.
Same purpose.
Okay, there is no difference in their purpose. It's about getting the person to feel better. For some, the self-help works, and for some, the relatable love story works.
Sure.
Okay, and we've seen both of them work for our audience, and we do it that way now. Where, see, that is why we bring it down to outcomes. What is that content delivering? What is the outcome that content is delivering for the user? Let's bring it down to that. And then that helps us make collections, make discovery. All of that is designed on the fact that audience को इससे क्या मिलेगा? Okay, so we see these overlaps now. That the audience who's consuming a certain kind of self-help is also consuming a certain kind of love. Okay, for example, the audience who consumes crime and mythology, very good overlap. Okay, crime, mythology, and horror, very good overlaps. Because they want to consume artificial worlds, okay, and now they can be mythology is also an artificial world for them that they get to go into, and fantasy and horror are also artificial worlds that they get to go into.
And I would then like to take that supposition forward to almost like, and I am assuming this is how you kind of use insights to see, okay, what's the most that we can push this person away just to do something. For example, if I were to take this train of thought forward, this mythology, there is horror, there is
crime,
and
fantasy.
So all this in some way is fantasy. So could you do something like an audio version of, say, The Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous, which is also kind
fantasy.
Of like a fantasy. I'm never going to step into that world, but I just want to peek into how that person thinks his house looks. It's kind of like the same train of thought, right?
Absolutely.
And another train of thought might lead to the same thing that I said, which is, say, Lifestyles of Rich and Famous from a completely different angle. Maybe they're starting off with economics and lessons from
right. So
young business leaders and all that.
That's a thing we do, right? Like we call it growth dramas. Okay, these are fictionalized versions of the non-fiction books. Okay, so if a Rich Dad Poor Dad is happening, there is a Rich Dad Poor Dad story that has been created with a guy named Ankur in India. Okay, and he's going through this journey where he's getting these lessons about assets and liabilities and how to invest and all that in the form of a story
itself.
Because story is what engages the users,
and that's what they remember.
And through that they remember it. Right.
In fact, very interesting that we talked about this entire world building and payoffs, because just this morning we were speaking to PGK, who is the CEO of the Ken. And he says, even in business storytelling, when we do, right, we look for the conflict.
Right.
What is the central conflict? And how is that conflict getting resolved at the end of the story? Or maybe leading to another conflict if that is how the arc goes, right? Now, if you think of it, within the confines of a 2,000 or 3,000 word long article, there is still a world building happening.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that
the best articles from New York Times or even the Ken start that way. They start with a way. It's usually the C format, right? Like you come back to that point you started out from.
Yeah.
And they always do that callback really well, and they always take you into a world when they start in a certain direction, because you're constantly then thinking about the thought that they planted in your head at the start. And I completely agree. See, I'll give you an example. Okay. I wrote a book on personal finance, which is a Bollywood themed textbook, okay, for adults. What I did in that, if I have to explain assets and liabilities, I use Diwar as an example. Said, मेरे पास आज bank balance है, बंगला है, गाड़ी है, तेरे पास क्या है? And use that reference to explain what assets and liabilities are. Similarly, every story, every concept in that textbook is explained through a top IMDb Bollywood film for adults. Because that is what it is. You attract them through a story that they like, and then you deliver value to them in an area that they want to get value in. Because this is gym and disco behavior. Okay, self-help, non-fiction is gym behavior. I know it's good for me.
Yeah,
but I can't promise I will be able to go every day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Disco, I know I'm not sure if it is good for me, and definitely not good for me every day. But if I like it, I will go every day. I don't even need anybody to tell me that, right?
Yeah.
And that is why the horizontal platforms will have both. They will have the gym guy, because the gym guy pays the money.
Right.
Okay, the disco guy doesn't pay the money. He's not sure if this is valuable enough in terms of money. It is valuable enough in terms of my time.
The gym guy bankrolls the disco guy.
The gym guy bankrolls the disco guy.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how this situation runs. But that gym behavior is very similar to the doctor behavior is very similar to non-fiction content consumption behavior.
That is so interesting. Like, and I'm like just dying to know what the other classifications and access that you guys have within the company. But I'm sure there's proprietary.
No, but it's fascinating stuff. Okay,
It's fascinating,
like there is stuff that you get to know about India that you don't get to know if you're not running a storytelling company.
Yeah, let's speak about that. Yeah.
I will tell you about that, right? Like you realize different things work in different languages. We run a multilingual platform, right? Like we have Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Bangla, Marathi, Gujarati, a little bit of fair amount of English now that we are starting US. But
Congratulations on that, by the way. That's
thanks, excited.
yeah.
How that goes. But the interesting thing is that you would think that the same content should work. India is aspirational. What is working in Hindi should work in Tamil as well. Doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Okay. It doesn't work. I will say Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam are also very different.
Yeah.
Okay. And what works in them. So I'll give you an example. Tamil, a lot of regional leaders tying your roots to how you can understand modern values kind of stuff works really well.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so biographies of Chola kings and Periyar and Karunanidhi's family and those kinds of things work really well.
I think my hypothesis there why it works very well is because Tamil people as a culture are very proud of what their culture,
Yes.
and they believe that this culture is what makes us unique in the world, and they draw everything from that.
Yes, exactly. So their source of inspiration and their source of consuming motivational or content around answers to their own live questions and those kinds of things is actually from their own cultural heroes. Whereas Malayalam, for example, is very fascinating. Their learnings are a lot from. They are very global in their mindset. Like a lot of stuff that they are consuming on our platform will be from the West, from the East. Genghis Khan will be consumed. Okay. And of course, Marx and all that gets consumed a lot. But again, I'm saying that again, there is a difference there. Because again, they will consume crime stories set abroad a lot more than set in the Kerala villages or the Kerala cities.
And it's so fascinating because we are literally talking about the
Neighbors,
right?
Telugu, we see romance stories, melodramas work a lot better because melodrama around family unity and conflicts around that, and soft love stories. Not too many. Like you would think Telugu is the land of Rajamouli. It is also the land of what is that guy's name? The animal director.
Two wrong people to ask that question too.
Yeah.
You guys are useless.
Absolutely.
yeah. That's why
What
we
is
have
the
you
animal
on.
director's name?
Oh wow, chalo, at least I feel better now.
Arjun Reddy director, Kabir Singh director.
No, sorry. Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we have you on over here too.
Yeah, why do you think we are educating ourselves with this conversation?
She knows a word. What did he say?
I can't see the name. See.
Kolati.
Sandeep Reddy Vanga.
Sandeep Reddy Vanga.
Vanga. So it is the land of Sandeep Reddy Vanga, and you see what kind of tropes work in those stories versus what is working in the Telugu rural regional space is very interesting. So even again in Kannada and Bangla also the behaviors are very different. Bangla is obviously very intellectual. They will consume again their own culture a lot more. So Rabindranath Tagore, Satyajit Ray, stuff like that is getting consumed a lot more. So anyway, so those kinds of differences exist, and it's very fascinating to see. I think Kama Sutra is also self-help. Okay. Now the user sees the ad, he thinks it's Kama Sutra, and he has no idea that what exactly is Kama Sutra. So he will click on that ad. Then he comes into my show, and then my show is actually teaching him how to pleasure
Your partner.
So he stays, he consumes. He's not actually looking. It has great CTR because it is sex-related keyword. He's not coming for that, but he's staying for what I'm giving him. He realizes that, there is some value here that I can learn how to pleasure my partner in this. And we've storified that as well. That there is a character who's going through a sexual discovery journey. And through that person's relatability, the person gets to know the different possibilities of pleasuring a partner. So I'm saying, this is valuable work here. मेरे को तो ये करने मिल रहा है. I'm happy to sell pulp. I'm happy to sell all kinds of genres. I'm happy to sell, even erotic genres because it is valuable. Through erotic genres, there are so many interesting things that we can teach our audience about feminism and about modern values. We are seeing the change in the kind of characters that are getting accepted, kind of women characters that are getting accepted. Earlier, we have a strong male audience, and they would want women characters to be damsel in distresses.
Sure.
Damsels in distress.
Yeah. This single damsel is going through a lot of distress.
Yeah. But now they want the female characters to have a lot more agency. There will be more femme fatales that would be attractive. Of course, there is the erotic angle to it. But the fact that they have agency and that they play a major role in the plot has become valuable. So that change also we are seeing in the audience taste. So the audience, you have to take the audience where they are, and then you have to take them where you want them to take them. You have to earn their trust for that. It comes back to that point.
Yeah. Kunj, I want to ask you, I want to step away from this particular train of thought for some time.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you one question, which is these observations you have about communities almost, right, on the basis of their content, this part of, and even Andhra Pradesh is the size of like many European countries.
Yes,
This part of Andhra Pradesh, this kind of content, or Kerala as a whole consumes it. You are also a you're also a seasoned traveler across the country, beyond the metros and all that. I would like to think that there is some parallel or some underlying reason that connects some aspect of culture that connects to various parts of what people consume. Like, for example, there might be a certain underlying reason in Kerala for which they, and this is like completely random, why they consume Western drama as well as, say, the way they fry their fish in a certain way. I'm just like, I don't know if I phrased this enough, but
no, I understand.
Could the same underlying reason be the cause for two different, things?
It could be. And I'm curious to see those connections.
I would love to.
I don't have a researcher's curiosity of that kind, but I will tell you what kind of things we notice, right? Like, we notice things about why do people consume certain genres, right? Like,
sure.
What do you get out of consuming a crime story? You get the sense of a crime story is about justice. It is about whether justice has been found or not. That is what a crime story is about, we realized. Okay, because they keep talking about उसको मैंने पकड़ा और उसको उसकी सज़ा उसको मिली, इसके लिए मुझे खुशी मिली, because that is the kicker that we are looking for in a crime story. So that is that's where that is coming from. Horror comes from all the deep-seated fears that we have inside us, and them getting
exposure therapy almost.
Yeah, essentially just confronting them and saying that, look, like, you will go through this bad period, like going through it, kind of a thing. Love is obviously about, the heart problems. And so it's interesting to see the genre and basis how the genres are behaving. What does it say about our audiences?
Yeah.
I feel one lens to look at it could be, what do people find aspirational and what do they find relatable?
Yes.
Right. So, for example, there will be some tropes of aspirationality which will cut across regions in India, I feel.
Yes.
Because I feel that somewhere we are also a country of so many young people who have in some form seen that wealth creation / success / modernity is possible. And I want to reach there. I don't know the path to reach there. For example, for most people, the path is land up in a big city. But landing up in a big city with no money in your pocket is one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Right? And I just want to know if you have some thought or insights or something you have seen around that.
Let me put it this way, right? Like, the thing about aspiration is that I remember this line in Rang De Basanti where they said that, हमारा एक पाँव कल में और एक पाँव आने वाले कल में है, इसीलिए हम आज में मूत रहे हैं. And our content consumption is like that. We want Vivekananda's learnings, okay, and we want to know, what Elon Musk is doing today, okay. Both are aspiration. Our aspiration is going to get satisfied by doing both these things.
Yeah.
And that is, I will not say unique, but that is a feature about India, that is not necessarily there in every country. Okay, where you're not only looking backwards, like say Japan, or you're not looking only forwards like some of these other younger countries. You're looking both ways at all times. Okay, and then there is a lot of insecurity about it, okay, who is right, and then there is a lot of fighting about it, that who is right. Okay, because sometimes they conflict each other, and then you don't know what to do because you're listening to so many things. There is so many things like habits. We are addicted to habits content.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, productivity content is another
Productivity.
level of addiction.
It's like 5 a.m. waking up at 5 a.m. उसके लिए मेरे पास 100 titles है, and all of them do well. And I'm amazed that, you know,
And
such
people are consuming it from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Which clearly tells them they are not waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah,
Wow,
absolutely.
there's an internal conflict of interest there.
Stock market again.
Yeah.
Massive content bucket. Like, just keep making stuff, they will keep consuming it. There is enough curiosity, enough demand for it. So like, you just keep realizing that these areas, you know, we realized at some point of time that we were doing this thing called, there was some content on network marketing. Okay, now network marketing is what? Like, it's basically that
Pyramid scheme. Selling.
Okay, like, bhai ye band karte hai. Then we keep getting messages that you are such Bayman people, why you not doing network marketing content? It is so valuable for us. I will make so much money with it. Like, bro, we don't want you to go through it.
Yeah.
So all kinds of schemes and all kinds of stuff they consume. अभी ये हर एक concept पे 200 minutes का show बनता है, and they would watch upwards of 100 minutes average listening minutes होता था in shows.
For these shows, yeah.
So that is the kind of curiosity and this crazy demand that exists. Self-help is completely, there is a plethora of self-help on YouTube. What is the need for you to come to Kuku FM, pay a subscription? It's not a free platform, and still consume so much more of self-help, because there is just so much latent need to get out of your current circumstances. That kind of desperation is so much, and there are so many curiosities about how to get a way out of this. What are the kind of things I can try, that they will consume whatever they get to be able to get out of it.
And I think the get out of the situation also works differently depending from what strata you come from. So suppose if you are coming from a lower middle class or a poorer background, you want to get out of your immediate economic circumstances. You dial it all the way up to the people who are all of us sitting in the room. For us, it's about our identity and our purpose and what we want to do with our life. The fundamental problem is still the same. Get out of my current situation.
Yes. Which is what is aspiration. Which is what aspiration is.
Aspirational. So for your larger audience, which is probably coming from a significant degree from tier 2, tier 3 cities, maybe even rural, I don't know.
Not rural so much, but yeah, tier 2 will be our biggest.
Biggest.
Chunk.
I'm assuming a big chunk of tier 1 also, right?
Tier 1 as well. See, the thing is that the beauty of this business model is the guy is paying me as much as he's paying for Sony Live or Hotstar in a year, because he pays me 100 rupees a month. Okay. So the self-selected guy who listens to regional content but pays this kind of, has the ability, he will probably have Google Pay installed on his app, on his phone, because he will be on auto pay. It means that we have a bias towards guys who are of a slightly higher quality in terms of digital penetration, in terms of willingness to pay and those kinds of things. So it is that kind of audience. But the sensibilities that I am addressing are definitely not of some exalted kind. I'm not going to get him a job or anything of that sort.
Absolutely.
What I'm addressing is his need to get entertained, his need to feel a little better, his need to gain a little bit of knowledge basis his curiosity. You know, one of the most important use cases is social situations. If I'm in an arranged marriage meeting, if I'm in an interview, if I'm in a social party, can I say something which I've heard on Kuku FM, because of which the other person will think I'm smart, I'm knowledgeable, I'm well read, any of these things.
That insight is beautiful, because if you actually go and open a Tata Sky today, they have one of the channels which actually has content exactly like this: how to behave in an office party.
Yes.
Right? Now, of course, office party may not be the content they want.
Correct.
But right, it's the same thing, right? And
Yes,
how do you behave in a social setup which makes you come across as presentable and smart and leave a good impression, because you believe that will eventually lead to something.
So that is why he consumes a lot of history on my platform. he will consume a lot of business. He gets to know, oh, Genghis Khan ने वहाँ पे ये किया था, तो मैं पार्टी में राइट टाइम पे ये बोल दूंगा तो मैं बहुत स्मार्ट लगूंगा. अगर वो अरेंज मैरिज मीटिंग में बैठा है, लड़की को बोल देगा कि वो मेरे को हिटलर नहीं पसंद है, मैं तो जेंगिस खान का फ़ैन हूँ, और उसको वो बताएगा कि वो क्यों जेंगिस खान ने क्या क्या चीज़ें की है, तो वो इम्प्रेस हो जाएगी. दोज आर द सिचुएशंस व्हाई पीपल आर डूइंग दिस थिंग्स. सो एस्पिरेशंस pan out in that kind of level as well, which is that I just want to be smarter because then I can win in social situations.
Yeah, that's such an interesting insight, because it's not just about saying but also justifying to some extent, right? I'm assuming none of these people are experts in Hitler versus Genghis Khan, but just not just saying out a statement because it sounds cool on its own. Correct. But having...
He spent 2 hours on it.
He spent 2 hours. Whether it's 5 minutes or 2 hours, doesn't matter. But it's like, I need to back the statement up with something rather than just throwing something out in the air. And I think that is beautiful. Like, there needs to be some substance behind this claim that I'm making. And honestly, this is advice for across the pyramid. You always say, right, demonstrate and don't just like show
and don't tell.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the thing is that people are a lot smarter today. It's like a postmodern world. They are not going to take your word because you say that, oh, I'm a big volleyball fan or whatever. Right? Like, they're going to ask you 5 more questions. Or they are going to wait for you to say. Sometimes people don't even ask questions. They say, they try to say what are the next 2-3 things that you will say, because of which you can justify this thing that you've said that you're a volleyball smarty, right? And in this world, you can't just like bluff your way out of it. And why should you bluff your way out of it? You should cultivate these kind of interests and go deep into these nerd holes and find interesting data about random things and then be able to talk about it.
To me it's a beautiful sort of like almost like a content appreciation evolution, if I may. Like the example we all say is that we don't get as many forwards on our WhatsApp anymore, or our like whatever uncles, parents, etc. are more, they know what a scam is and all that. We don't need to do that level of thing. It's like over time people have figured this out, right, without needing to go through like a digital literacy course or something like that. Like stuff has happened, stuff is there in the news. It's almost like, I mean, I might be romanticizing or like shedding too positive a light on it, but it's almost like, it's like when there's a wound on the body, just leave it for some time. The wound will heal by itself. It's almost like, I mean, that was there at one point of time, but that's kind of like the virus that you need to get in the body so that antibodies, and it heals over time. It's kind of like that. And I find that beautiful. I think people have always been smart, I think. It's just that, okay, at one point of time, maybe there was just an overload of facts, and then there was a time when you said a fact and you got away with it. You thought that was the way things were, but people became smarter and said, prove it. And then, then a self-correcting ecosystem, of which Kuku FM was a part.
No, I'll tell you, I'll give you one more example, how this has panned out. Because of the geo situation, because of the geo effect, suddenly a lot of people had cheap internet. And the first thing that they went to was the immediate need, which was TikToks of the world and Instagrams of the world. But as they went along, they were like, okay, Mr. Phone, what are other problems that you can solve in my life? You're here and I'm doing this. What else can I do with you? And that's when some of these things like our app were also discovered, which is that, I can learn something valuable. I can spend some deep time with it when I'm doing a lot of menial work or repetitive work, or I'm traveling, or I'm simply living in single TV households where I am not the decision maker on what is going to happen on the TV. So there they have figured out how to get into these interest areas, and an app like ours had reason to exist, essentially, which is that they started demanding more from the phone.
That, I mean, just fascinating. I'm just blown away by the amount of insight shared already. I don't have a follow-up question immediately. So over to you. What's up?
So then one thing to think about is that if there is so much of a need or a desire, because there's clearly a pull for content, right? You are saying go 1 hour, 5 hour, if I may, people will consume 5 hours also.
Correct.
Right? Now, when we are looking for a payoff in a story, right? The payoff comes, we feel good. We want to go through that cycle of repeat. Is there a point in that payoff where fatigue sets in.
Yes. You either die a hero or you live long enough to be considered the villain. Is the same with that story as well. It look at Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma. They've all or careers of Mahendra Singh Dhoni or Sachin Tendulkar for that matter. They all stayed for longer than they needed to. Okay, and that is how it happens. See, even why I mentioned Sachin and Dhoni's career is because that is also a media-driven decision.
Yeah.
Okay, why is Dhoni coming and playing an over in IPL even right now? It's a media-driven decision. It's not a Dhoni individually making a decision that he wants to keep playing this one over. If he was anyway, I don't want to go into a cricket discussion. But my point is that what was my point?
Your point is that the fatigue sets in.
Yes, the fatigue sets in, and businesses will only, so the curve will be like this. The show has started, slowly the interest is going up on it, okay, and then the interest starts going down, and when the interest starts going down at a much faster rate, in a steeper rate, is when the shows are cut off. Okay, now in today's business it is possible to cut off those shows
At
much
the
sooner.
peak. Yeah, at the peak.
Immediately after so when the plateau, not the peak, but after the peak, when the plateau is hit, you can stop the show.
Yeah.
You know the downfall will come.
Because you know the downfall will come, and then it's a net negative game for you to keep spending money on it to make more seasons, more episodes, etc.
And also, it's not only just a net negative on money; it's a net negative on user attention.
Yes,
because if they have 3 hours to consume, you might as well give them 3 hours of, oh my god, this is awesome content.
Absolutely.
And then go to find another
Otherwise, they will not renew next month.
Yeah.
Or they will not buy the next set of coins. We have a microtransaction model also. In these long stories, we have a microtransaction model. So they buy a 10 episode pack, then they buy a 20 episode pack. Then as they keep finding more interesting stories panning out, as in the same story, there is the same story going deep into 1000 episodes, and they are buying coins after every point of time. So I have designed cliffhangers, situations, payoffs in such a way that they hit at the time that they need to be paying more coins.
Yeah.
So it's like content was always game design.
Yeah.
Now we have realized that because of AI, the iteration of knowledge around content has become so fast that now you can see that game design. You can see the inherent architecture of content, and at an aggregate level understand that what are the kind of catalysts, tropes, character types have been successful.
This is a way, like, I have always thought that there is different content there's content that gets you a view, and then there's content that gets you a subscriber, right? Like, I mean, the TikTok fame, sure, is one thing, but then you would subscribe. Subscription is a much more difficult thing, right? You subscribe only if you think, oh, this was interesting or funny or whatever. Can this be repeated? Can I get more of this from the same person? Either I'm going to get cute cat pictures, or I'm going to get insightful things about the stock market, or whatever, right? The subscription, like I would always tell somebody who wants to build a subscriber base to create content not for virality as such.
Yes.
That's unpredictable anyway, but optimize towards what might get you subscribers. And that, I think, goes beyond the content itself and elevates to, like, what's the idea that you're trying to sell? Independent of platform. Independent of platform. It might be Instagram today. It might be whatever, metaverse something tomorrow. It might be something completely else in the future. Any thoughts on that? As an observation by itself, but specific to Kuku FM.
No, you look at ad-funded platforms. Let's look at the OTT world, where it's a fairly mature industry, where there are ad-funded platforms exist, like Amazon Mini TV and even MX Player while it was there, and so on. And then there are pure subscription platforms where Netflix is Sabka Baap, right? Now,
and there are those who are in the middle.
And then there are those who are in the middle. You will see that their slates look very different. Okay, the kind of shows that they commission, the kind of attention that they are trying to capture. In an ad-funded, in an AVOD model, you will see a lot of limited series where the brand is integrated and into situations, etc., etc. In the case of Netflix and Amazon, you will see long format seasonal series where obviously you're just trying to optimize for audience engagement. Here you're trying to optimize for immediate audience interest. So he lands on the show and you can show X number of impressions. Here you're trying to buy the audience trust. So that can happen by spending hours and hours on it, not by seeing a brand in an like you imagine this, right? Like HBO is elite content, elite storytelling, and it is there on Jio Cinema.
Yeah.
And there is a Gold Council ad that plays just before an HBO show.
Yeah.
And if I was an HBO official sitting anywhere in this world, I would be like, you guys are destroying the value of my content.
Yeah.
Okay, I am prestige content. I am supposed to be paid thousands and thousands rupees of it. But it's India, it's a cheap market, so I'm getting less subscription money from it. But don't show an ad before it. Okay, I'm taking someone into a world that has been painstakingly created.
World building again, as I said.
Elaborate world building in every HBO show that you will ever see. And before that, there are ads playing. In between, there are ads playing. How could like...
It kills storytelling in so many ways, right? No, it kills because the moment you are immersed in content, right? The moment you're immersed in content, and then the ad just breaks that illusion immediately.
So they are definitely, ad platforms have different objectives in that sense. See, I'm very against ad funded platforms. Okay, because I have built my career in ad funded platforms, and I know that there you're serving two masters, and actually you're not serving.
And nobody is happy.
All. Yeah, and nobody is happy. The moment you try to make the user happy, the advertiser is unhappy. If you make the advertiser happy, the user is obviously unhappy, which is the status quo. Most of the time, you're trying to make the advertiser happy and you're making the user unhappy. Times of India mein Samir, what was his name?
Jain.
Times of India mein Samir Jain said this thing in the sales floor. That we are selling impressions here.
At least is clear about it. The unambiguity has to be
appreciated. And that is the most appreciable thing about Times of India, that they are very clear that what they are selling. The rest of them have these on the non-fiction side, these journalistic values and all that they talk about, but you're essentially, तेरे पेपर का वैल्यू है क्या? तेरे पेपर बिक रहा है क्या? 20 रुपया 25 रुपया कोई दे रहा है तेरे एक एडिशन का? नहीं दे रहा है ना, तो तू उसको फंड तो एडवर्टाइजिंग से कर रहा है, तो फिर तू उसका ही काम कर रहा है. You're not working for the user.
I mean, we always say, at a individual creator level, the most important thing for you to figure out, and the most difficult question to answer, is why you're doing this. But it works at a business of content level as well, right? What is your objective ultimately? And lean either way. Either you are a Times of India that's unabashedly going to say, listen, we are selling ad space, or you lean heavily, say Ken, saying we are going to serve the subscriber and do everything to make that person happy. I think this clarity of thought, I mean, we use the term clarity of ambition.
Clarity of ambition makes sense.
But it's exactly that, the business side of things as well.
It's also like, it changes also over time. Like when you start off, I would recommend that when you start off, be more commercially inclined, because when you're commercially inclined, the speed of the feedback loop is very fast. Okay, when you're commercially inclined, everything that you put out, there will be enough audience that will consume it, because you are making it for a TG, and if you make it well, they will consume it and you'll get a lot of feedback. Okay, and also you'll build a lot of trust. And then you move to a direction where you want to be an artist. You be an artist and you put out really delusional and really offbeat stuff, and stuff that you truly wanted to do and nobody ever gave you a chance to do all that, and you would have bought the audience trust. You will be able to do that.
And people will love you for that. Because it's like, if you like a comedy, you like the joke. Even if the joke doesn't land that well, you will laugh.
Exactly. So you bought the trust, right? That is the thing. Like, let's not have a principle approach to it at all times. Simply because we are making stories. If we were making soap, we wouldn't be thinking about it so much, right? Like, we are making stories, we are fortunate people, but there is a journey to it, and you have to earn that kind of privilege to make Christopher Nolan and whoever is your god, right? He took time to get there. He made a lot of stuff to serve immediate audience interest first.
Cool. In fact, I was just thinking that this is almost like, think of yourself, and Chuck, you talk about this, is that think of yourself as a freelancer, right? When you are starting out as a freelancer, when nobody knows you, you will take on any work which will pay. And then after a point, you come to a point, you start thinking, because now I am known for this, now I have enough money, etc. Now I will only choose to see what work I want to do. But to get there, you have to go through and do everything that comes your way.
And look, Utsav, the ground reality is that everybody, however they feel about it, everybody is going to take up that work, the commercial work. Okay, the problem is the way they'll approach it. Okay, when you approach it that way, you are not learning everything you could have from it. Okay, because you are being very, distanced about it. That okay, I am doing it because I have to do it, but I am not going to be known for this work, and I am not going to own this work, and I am not going to understand a way to make it work. Whatever happens, like leave no stone unturned. उस रिगर से काम नहीं करते हो तुम शुरुआत में.
You still have to do a bloody good job of it. There is absolutely no option in that.
No, that's the problem. That's where people falter, is what I'm trying to say.
अच्छा, वो देख लेगा half-assed.
Everybody will take up the work. It's not like they will not take up the work, but they will call it in. They will not do a great job of it.
They don't put heart into it.
They don't put heart into it. I see creators who are like just starting out, and of course we don't pay as much as the Netflix pays, right? Obviously, okay. So then they are like, they will do a shit job of it, and I'm like, इससे तो तेरा भी कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ, मेरा भी कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ.
And you have soured relationship.
हाँ, वो तो एक अलग ही चीज़ है. ठीक है, तुम उतना लॉन्ग टर्म नहीं सोच रहे हो, but like, what is the point of putting out shit work? It's come from your desk. Everything that has come from your desk has your reputation attached to it.
It goes back to kind of like what you were saying about your own library, right? If you put out shit content, that the fact that is up over there is going to make the overall Kuku FM brand itself go down a little bit, and it works the same way with freelancers, content creators, etc. as well. Right. Word spreads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Kunj, I want to. Sorry, was that?
No, that's his own name.
I wanted to reconcile two parts of you for me, right? And like one half is sort of like the creator half, and I consider you a creator in many ways. So there is the pure creator would say to some extent, don't listen too much to the audience. There's a whole Steve Jobs quote about I don't listen to the audience, or I go where the puck is, all that sort of thing. And then there is the part of you as head of content at Kuku FM, which in many ways has to listen to the consumer. You already told us some examples of this, and in that article that I'd written where I'd interviewed you and your colleague, which will be linked in the notes, of course, I remember one of the things that I remember the most is him saying something like, we make it mandatory for everybody to speak to at least one customer every week or something of this sort. I remember like writing a fancy line, right? Institutionalizing speaking to customers or something like that. And I was very proud of that line. But I want so creators at some level want to say, no, let me just create for the sake of it. Don't listen to feedback. And then of course you now have to listen to feedback. Like, how do you reconcile these two? I mean, I'm asking you because you're in the perfect position to answer this.
No, so first thing I will tell you is that this podcast is addressed to creators and potential creators. So I am saying the things that I am.
Sure.
And if this podcast was addressed to engineers and startup founders, I would not say these things.
Fair enough. Fair.
Okay. So you understand the duality of it, because I deal with that 100%. In my own company, right? Like when I'm talking to my team, it's about pushing them to get off their asses and
again, ambition, right? The ambition is
embrace tech, understand data, listen to the user, and bring the humility to it. That is the communication for the team. The communication for business heads, the communication for the product team, the founders, is that give them space to explore their imaginations, because your biggest IPs are going to come because of this great talent that you have in the company. Okay. Like you look at Supercell, the guys who have created video IPs like video game IPs like Clash of Clans.
Sure.
You see how their organization is structured, and you see how the Korean web novel production houses, by the way, Korean production houses have individually IPO'd. Imagine this. How many production houses that are making films in India have IPO'd? There are 15 Korean production houses who make web novels have
IPO'd.
Okay. Anyway, my point is...
They have one.
Yashraj
and joke, but he got it. The currency in Korea. I'm sorry.
Sorry, मैं बहुत सारा चीज बोल दिया.
Sorry, I killed that off completely.
No, it's fine.
No, so you were saying that essentially what you say to a founder audience.
Yes. And then I came to Korea. What was I saying about?
So you were saying that
these guys have
the way the Korean company is structured.
They are both structured the same way. The Supercell guys and the Korean production houses. Two companies making very different content. In two very different industries, in two very different continents, may structure it the same way, where the creative producer, the guy who's the project owner of a particular IP, has all the power. Okay, and he has an organization under him. He owns P&L. Imagine this.
Sure.
Okay, a creative person owns the P&L of that particular IP. So he has to figure out how he's going to make an IP that is going to be successful throughout, and he gets complete freedom to run it that way. So he can, in Supercell, a game designer, a creative producer equivalent, is in development for 6 months before he is even asked कि भाई तू क्या बना रहा है. Okay, and that is why they make the best games, among the best games in the world, right? And that space is going to be important. And that space is where I come in to fight with everybody else to give to these creative talent that I have gotten. And on the other side, I have to get the creative talent to come down from their high purchase to do this. So मैं हूँ यहाँ पे बीच में. And मेरे को तो यही करना है. तो मतलब जब चांस मिलेगा लाइफ में, then I want to go back to being just an artist, just a storyteller. But I'm also earning my right to do that, right?
Yeah.
Being able to do these things, do them at scale, show that I have been successful in working out multiple genres and multiple geographies, will someday earn me the right to tell my story with all honesty, the way I want to tell it, with craft and with detailing.
Yeah. No, I think the dichotomy in some sense within the company itself, and I mean, we don't need to take your company as like any creative, any organization that makes money on the back of content, I'm sure goes to this. Do we sell the snackable stuff, or do we sell the, say, high art stuff, which might be good for the long term, right? Which might, like, nobody remembers what the pop stuff from 94 was, but everybody remembers Pulp Fiction and stuff like that.
Yes.
Right? So is there kind of like, and this is advice for creators in general, right? I'm not unnecessarily asking whether this is how you structure your company, but is there like some stuff will take time? The high art stuff is stuff that might take time and might be great for, if I put this out eventually, it'll be great for my quote-unquote brand, right? However, I do need to pay the bills, or there's an audience. If I'm a pure creator, there's an audience out there who's expecting, say, a reel from me every week. And that is something that might be low, bro, but it's still something that I can churn out on a regular basis.
Yeah, you can do it elegantly and you can do it thoroughly and with rigor.
The question I'm asking is basically content creation, like, is it about a balance of these two? You're working on this while you're doing this, and I'm assuming that extrapolates to your business as well.
Yes, absolutely. So there is this YouTube concept of that Hero Hub and Help content.
Oh yeah, Hero Hub and Hygiene, I think it's called, or whatever they changed it to now.
Yeah, they may have changed it. So it's again that structure, right? Like there is some content that you're going to take 2 months to make, and you're going to get the best guys to make it, and it's going to be put up on YouTube, and it's going to be your breakout shot. And then there is some content that is just a content so that your channels treated like a hub.
Sure.
Okay, where I have to every time I visit, I'll find something valuable.
Sure.
Okay, so those kinds of layers will exist in every content plan. Everything is, what is a slate? Everybody says आपने Amazon Prime का slate देखा. Slate is portfolio.
What do you see the first
ये मेरे
thing,
blue chip stocks है, यहाँ पे मेरे को risk कम है, return कम है, पर यहाँ पे risk ज़्यादा है, पर return ज़्यादा है. And you design a portfolio. We literally design a portfolio every month on saying that, okay, we are going to put out 500 shows. What is going to be our portfolio like? What is going to be the mix? What are the high risk things that we are doing, balanced with things that we know are always going to work?
There might be some things that you do just from a brand building perspective, and not even worry about whether it's being consumed or not, so that when a person is signing on, they see something super aspirational. They say, I want to be at the gym, maybe.
Correct.
They may never consume it, and they may sign up and they consume everything else. But yeah, it works. There may be some content that you do just to be able to put on the slate.
That, the world's biggest bestseller is on our platform, is valuable to put.
There we go.
But, the number of minutes that are going to be consumed are going to be on a completely different show.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely.
That's a fascinating insight.
It's almost like, as they say in Hindi, हाथी के दांत खाने के और दिखाने के और.
Yes, I have a great example that I give everywhere about this. When I was a child, I wanted cable television in my house. My father refused. Okay, I told him.
I see where this is going. Every child has done this.
Discovery, National Geographic.
There we go.
I will watch all that. What is wrong with you? I will grow in my life. Then obviously when it came, I was watching Shah Rukh Khan and WWF. So that's what happens. That's exactly how all of our content consumption behaviors are. When we are making the decision of payment and when we are making the decision of consuming it, we are making two very different decisions.
Yeah.
So why do you think at the core of this, why is the paying self and the consuming self two different selves?
Wow, what a great question.
It's a deep question.
And this is true for all of us. It's not just true for whether it's your TG.
Because the paying self comes from our ideal self-image.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Signing up for the gym 1st of Jan.
हाँ, कि मैं हूँ ऐसा, मैं हूँ, मैं
हाँ,
डिसिप्लिन्ड हूँ और मैं कमिटेड हूँ मेरी ग्रोथ की तरफ, और मैं कंजर्वेटिव हूँ, स्मार्ट
मीडिया
हूँ,
डाइट अच्छी है.
मीडिया डाइट एकदम हेल्दी है, मैं जो इतने 6 घंटे रेबेल मून देख के आया हूँ, it's not so stupid indulgence I've done, right? That is the one who makes the decision of purchase.
Yeah.
But when it comes to consumption, it's like drugs, right? Like it's like whatever our ugliest nature is will come out.
Okay, so then a question here.
There you're behaving like nobody is watching you. That is why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Now my question here is that when you create content with a payoff, so my point is that when you're creating payoffs for your customers, right? Do you feel there is a need to balance a payoff of how it makes them feel versus does the make them feel pushed to take an action? Because it's somewhere you are saying, right, that I want to use these stories to move them ahead. But moving them ahead in thought versus moving them ahead in action.
Yeah, so I have, before Kuku FM, I have worked in CNBC Awaaz where we were doing this entire financial literacy thing.
Yeah.
Then I went to Inside IIM where I was actually getting people to understand careers and, you know, where they can go and those kinds of things. And I have realized that what I do has limitations.
Correct.
What it can do is make people feel better about themselves at that particular point of time. It may get people to become curious about learning something new, but it's not teaching them something new necessarily that they can start applying from the next day. Okay, for that, you need to create courses. You need to get into education.
Yeah.
Like
so
media is the like a poorer cousin of education in the sense that it really truly can't teach you anything in an actionable way.
No, so I'm not saying that when I'm saying doing doesn't always mean taking action. But the fact that, do you think can you create decent enough curiosity for them to go down a path which may eventually lead to an action? Do you think that is possible?
That is possible. And that is why, so for example, now if you're making content for the Bihar audience, which is like a proper cohort for us within the Hindi setup, then you don't make it only on the kind of stuff that you know is stereotypical about Bihar. You don't make it about crime and abuse, and you don't make it about UPSC also. You actually make it about the lower caste tribal heroes that have come from there. And then you see that, okay, there is a set that is consuming, and then now that you have given it a proper push in advertising and in discovery, there are more users consuming it. And now you suddenly created audience for something that never had that kind of audience before. Okay.
Yeah.
So those kinds of wins are especially very, very satisfying when you get to do that. But I know that I can't go looking for it every time. Like the Kama Sutra thing I told you about, very satisfying to be able to get a user who's looking for basically immediate titillation and getting him to learn something more valuable is very, very gratifying to be able to do. But can't look for it every time, because I feel like my first job is to entertain, is to make that period of time that he's spending with me valuable and fun and interesting. So fun and interesting are things that I'm comfortable delivering. More than that is a little difficult for me.
Okay, so as someone who's head of content, right? So one of your jobs you're saying is to make it entertaining, fun, interesting. Okay. Now that of course is a goal you need to continuously get to, because what is fun, entertaining, interesting also changes.
Yes.
Right. Is there any other goal you choose which says that if I actually hit this goal, this user will never leave me?
I think that will come from the craft of the storytelling, the kind of variety of talent that you can bring in and create a wide variety of stories that are fresh, that create worlds that they haven't imagined. It will come from all those things.
Okay.
It will not necessarily come from where... as in I didn't understand.
So my question is that I understand that what you said just now is a way to make it fun, interesting.
Right.
Is there another goal which you have with content?
I have goals with content that will go beyond my current career choices.
Okay.
So let me put it that way, right? Like I'll give you a very politically incorrect example, but if I was running my own thing, I would want to do a caste census because of the kind of reach I have right now in India. Okay, but that is my personal view, and I don't think I'll be able to achieve it through my current career choices.
Sure.
Whether I will be able to do that or not in the future is something that मेरे को कितना deeply चाहिए उस पे ही depend करता है.
नहीं, correct. So on your conviction of wanting to do.
Yes. So those kinds of objectives are plenty. See, when I got into this career, you know how I got into this career? I got into this career because I read Fourth Estate. Okay, and Fourth Estate was full of media moguls who would sway elections and change opinions. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to influence in such a way that I can change how a society thinks or how a society functions. And I want to feel that power, but I had certain morals also around it. What is it that I want the society to feel? And my education in MICA gave me more moral frameworks because of professors like Matthew in terms of where I want to take them. And in news, I tried to do that. When I ran my own thing, I tried to do that. In Kuku FM, I tried to do that to whatever extent is possible. It's never going to happen wholly because I am not a activist. But it can happen substantially. And given the kind of opportunities you get, you make, like our professor used to say, right? Like all our professor used to say was that strategy hoti hai har cheez ki. Ki matlab, because you want to say it, you can't go and shout it at
absolutely, it simply doesn't work.
But you can integrate it into a story that is pulpy, but it can have characters that make a very different point than usual. So
and see, and I agree with you. It's not even about the activist, because even the activist at a fundamental level understands that for significant change to happen, incremental change has to happen first.
Correct.
Right. So even for you, like let's say whatever outcome you are looking to, and I'm saying even entertainment as an outcome still works on incrementality.
Yeah, right? I found that brings me to Chamkila, right? Like Chamkila, have you guys seen Chamkila?
No, I know of the film. I've not seen it.
Chamkila is a guy who's a folk singer in Punjab who used to sing about, really edgy stuff. Have you guys seen Chamkila? He used to talk about sex, and he used to talk about, intimacy and desires and all that in his songs. But it was his way of being an intellectual for the masses. And giving them that freedom, that women were able to talk about their sexual desires in songs because of the kind of songs he was playing.
Yeah.
I take that with myself, because my female consumption, whatever is happening on romance shows where men are really, really nice to them, even if they are horrible to the rest of the world.
Which is why Shah Rukh Khan works still so well.
Exactly. And they are consuming it in their earphones. So then there is intimacy situations also in that. There are abusive words also in that. And the housewife is consuming this in her earphones, so the rest of the household doesn't know what she's consuming. So in fact, while she's consuming something on her phone or on the TV, she is accountable in terms of what she's consuming. When she's consuming it as audio on Kuku FM, she's not accountable for it. So she can be her truest self when she's consuming it. And that is valuable enough for me.
No, the fact that she can exercise her agency in content choices is huge.
You know, the beautiful thing is that we have women subscribers who have signed in with their husband's accounts with their husband's names. Okay, and then when you see their behavior, you realize that this is a female consumer. Because of the kind of shows they are consuming, the kind of comments they are leaving, there is a certain difference in the way the communication is happening. And then when we call them and we say, हमको ये समझना तो है, वो तो मेरी wife है, मैं उनसे call करवाता हूँ. And then we would speak to the wife and we realize she is the real consumer of that account. And it's such a gorgeous thing that we got to know that there are women who are consuming all this content on our platform, and it's hidden in the data. We didn't know.
Yeah, the stories are hidden in the data.
Yes. And it's so fascinating because the data guys and the story guys have to sit together and figure this out.
Yeah.
Either of them alone can't do it. I tell them, तुम engineer बिठाओ AI के साथ, Gen AI के साथ, उसको बोलो story बनाने को, नहीं बना पाएगा. But हमारे भी लोग जो content वाले हैं, they need that engineer to make these run these platforms. These platforms being able to understand the creator, understand the user is so important, and that is possible because data is the language in which the user is speaking to the company in terms of what is it that he wants and what is he enjoying, and that language ka understanding is very important for the businesses to run.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating. I mean, that is such a wide-ranging statement by itself, right? Because some of the worst presentations I've had to sit through are just reams of slide after slide of just numbers with no context. And I remember once it was a CMO of a very big company who was being presented slides, and there is a storytelling point over here, I assure
Yes.
viewers. Like, I've sat through half an hour of your presentation and I don't know what you want me to do or what you are going to do. And he actually said it would have been much better if you just came for 5 minutes with one slide that said, this is what we are going to do, this is what you're going to do. And yeah, to some extent it is that, right? The digital era has given us these numbers, and the numbers in and of themselves don't say anything, right? People just say, oh, bounce rate decreased, and is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? But you need to add, I mean, context matters.
No, for example, in market research also, right? One of the things we also always tell people is, this is the data. What is the story?
What is the story?
We say that in as many words. It's not even like, what is the story? What is happening with the brand? What does the brand need to do? How are they going to do this? How are they going to get there?
Yeah.
All data should support everything.
One of my favorite things about Micah is the slide rules game, right? Like
we should tell what slide rules is. Please, Kunj, go ahead.
So, but I think Chuck should talk about the slide rules.
Why?
game.
Because I ran it for 2 years. Okay, so slide rules is a game where, so I mean, anyone who's in marketing, but Micah especially, is notorious for their love for Microsoft PowerPoint. So slide rules is a game where a team, and it's a team of 2 or 3, is given a random presentation, and they have to present it as a coherent story essentially, right? And the thing is, it's not going to be a random presentation plucked from somewhere, because the slides are going to be completely different. You may have a serious graph on one slide, you may have Maria Sharapova on the next slide, you will have a GIF on the next slide, and they have to make...
There is Vietnam War followed by Taylor Swift, and you have to make a connection and tell a story.
And you're telling a corporate story.
And trying to keep a straight face on it. It is one of the most beautiful games to play,
So that's us slapping on a story on a data. So that's why.
Maybe stories is just, I mean, this is a very meta way of looking at it, but maybe it's just, like, again, it goes back to that fact that I said, our brain is trying to process 30,000 things every day. And stories maybe is just our brain's way of making sense of the world around us, right? Brands are essentially stories, and our image of a person who we see for the first time, and I mean, some of it is fair, some of it is unfair, yes. It's again, it's a story. It's trying to link back to, okay, people who look like this have done this in the past, and then of course your judgment to prove that or otherwise. So yeah, maybe, I mean, that's maybe why stories have always...
Actually, the thing is that we actually understand what data is itself very poorly. If you go to first principles, what data is, data is a quantitative abstraction of a story.
Correct.
What you have to do is, because data is a measurement of a story,
and reverse
engineer a story. So think about, now I do quantitative research for a living, right? So what I'm trying to do is, by designing that survey or questionnaire, is to capture the data, because I can't go and listen to the story of 10,000 people individually. I try and get that as data, and my job is to say, what is the reverse engineer story of this person, which is actually valuable. The data itself is just a way to get to that story.
Absolutely. One of the
it's kind of like, of like, I mean, analog sounds converted into digital signals, by which in and of themselves mean nothing, but when you put headphones or whatever through them, it finally comes analog again.
Makes sense. Well, one of the things I was thinking about when we were talking about data is that, in a world where a lot of decision making has moved to data, funny things happen, okay? So one thing that has happened is what I call the Mirzapur problem, okay? Now Amazon Prime Video released Mirzapur, abusive, Hindi heartland, crime show, okay? That got successful. All the slates moved to 60% abusive, Hindi heartland, crime shows. Okay. And then for the next 5 years, there was a proliferation of
the Mirzapur copycats.
Or Mirzapur copycats. Okay, because it is so difficult to find a fresh genre that cracks. The job that Mirzapur has done, or the job in that case, actually Mirzapur has also come from Gangs of Wasipur. The job that Gangs of Wasipur has done is the most high value job. Today also Mirzapur is going to make the most amount of money from crime as a genre in its third season as well. And that's because you being able to crack a fresh genre is far more valuable in this business than you being able to get the juice out of genres that have been cracked.
Sure. Yeah.
And data helps you get the juice out of genres that have been cracked. Data doesn't help you crack the top
Goes
genres.
back to what you said.
Sharpening of imagination.
Imagination. That's where imagination comes in. If you want to really be valuable in the content business, you have to crack a new genre. You have
For
to crack a new
example,
style.
you can't make Lapata ladies with data,
Yes, you can't make Lapata ladies with data.
right? But once Lapata lady is successful, you have to figure out why it works.
Yes.
And then find that in another story.
Correct.
Rather than replicate
Exactly.
the same.
Then
formula
let
over
them
again.
replicate Lapata lady.
Yes. Exactly. And that is why what was so the Mirzapur problem, by the way, shouldn't happen today now. It happened mainly because the shoot schedules are so long.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Otherwise, it shouldn't have happened. This impact shouldn't have stayed for this long. My slate should have been commissioned at a much shorter feedback time for me to able to say that नहीं अब मिर्जापुर का जूस मतलब उस तरह के crime shows का जूस निकल गया है. Let's move on. We need to find more of these genres. Now with AI that is possible because now the collection of knowledge is much faster.
And pattern recognition is much
Pattern
easier.
recognition is much easier.
Yeah.
I can put a 1 lakh word script into AI and it will give me inherent structure of the story
You
without
can
me having
brute
read
force
it.
pattern recognition. Brute force. कर सकते हो.
Exactly. So that is the beauty of it now, and hence a lot of these industries shouldn't be working the way they are working, and they need to wake up fast, and the big guys need to move fast on these. Otherwise, there is a big problem here. They will lag behind. Like I will tell you that the West is lagging behind in terms of storytelling compared to the East. They have moved on so much faster now.
Yeah. I mean, they don't need to.
Actually, I would even say that they've not even moved on because East already had it. Manga comics running into 1,000 editions is not even remotely new. It
is not.
existed forever. And so people are actually very comfortable with large universes.
Absolutely, and it's not just large universes. It's about there is a grammar to Western storytelling which comes from their morose landscapes and their morose cultures, and there is a certain plainness to how they dress, and that translates into the filmmaking grammar of it also. Okay, the cultures in Asia are far more boisterous in terms of their colors, their celebrations, their relationships with families, all of those things. And it shows in how the story is told, how the dialogues are written, how the dialogues are uttered. That grammar is different in the East. And what we have done is, because of our obsession with English, we've consumed a lot of that culture and not enough of this culture.
Yeah.
And that is why हम ना actually क्या हो गए, हम weaker versions of our own content हो गए. Like
Beautifully said.
we have banished melodrama from our content. But we are an emotional society.
Yeah.
We talk melodrama. Our mothers do melodramas with us. That's how deeply ingrained melodrama is in our society.
Actually, this is a very good point you make because there is this concept in anthropology called auto-orientalism, which says that the West saw us as Oriental. What we are now doing, we are reproducing the West's images of who we are.
Yes.
Instead of removing the Oriental gaze and saying this is who we are authentic to this and we will make this.
Correct. Absolutely. It's a problem with our language, It's amazing that we don't know any language well. In our country, we don't know any language well. Our language of instruction was different. Our language of work is different. Our language at home is different. Our language of content consumption is different. So hence, our comfort level with any language doesn't exist. That is why we make shows in English. Our Hindi shows are not in Hindi. They are in English. Even in Tamil, Telugu, we have made versions of language that are that actually don't exist in a formal way. And that's how we consume language. And that is why reading is not big in India. And that brings me back to the publishing point. In India, only 15% of reading is recreational. Of the total amount of books that are sold, 85% are trade and textbooks. Okay? Where reading has been forced upon you. Only 15% is this. Because in reading, having intimacy with a language is very important.
Yeah.
And we have not developed that in any of it. Of course, it has given us other powers. Us knowing multiple languages, us being able to shift between languages mid-sentences. Those are really valuable skills. But now, reading is not going to be the primary way through which we are going to learn.
Consume, yeah.
It never was, but now all the best knowledge in the world is also not going to be restricted to books. It's already not happening.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen even more.
I mean, you can learn more from YouTube than you can learn from a book sometimes, right?
Exactly.
So my question is then, you remember in the beginning of the conversation, you said that you will come back to why should you write a book?
Yes. So, no, I had said that why you should not write a book.
Not write a book, sorry. Okay, so
I
should not write a book?
And I know you're on the verge of publishing a book.
No, I have my very strong reasons to write a book because to me, one, apart from being a personal passion project, it's a great brand building tool.
Yes, that's all it is now. You know, like exactly what I'm saying, right? Like,
Wow, so many bubbles have been burst at this point.
no, that's exactly. I have published books. That is why I'm telling you. All it helps is it makes the hiring manager feel like this guy must know his shit if he's published books. Otherwise, there is nothing. There is no other justification for publishing books. Only there are some people in the industry, in the corporate who exist, who have some value attached to it because they had that ambition 20 years ago in their lives as well. So someone has done it, they find it valuable. But that's all it is. Okay. Otherwise, there is no real reason for you to publish books. You publish an audiobook instead. मतलब मेरा तो धंधा है इसलिए मैं bias हो सकता हूँ. But I'm saying that Ashneer Grover published a book. Ashneer Grover published an audiobook with us. His audiobook did 10x of what the book.
Easy. Yeah.
Okay. And
We'll end up doing 20x lifetime.
हाँ लाइफ मतलब वो तो 6 महीने से उसका बुक था, एक हफ्ता हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म पे था तो उसने 10x किया था. So that is the difference now that exists. You put it on web novel. I'm telling you, 13-year-old kids have 2 million reads on their platform. You put it as a web comic, that guy has 30 million views when it is turned into a web comic. So either create for the US audience. That's the other thing I will say.
Sure.
By the way.
Sure.
Okay. If you have intellectual hang-ups, okay, you will not go below a certain barrier, for example. And if you have ambitions, US is the most valuable consumer market in the world. Most people will go there, but it is very competitive as well.
Yeah.
So that's the other aspect of it. But that is one way that you can keep writing books, is that you make it for the US market, write a web novel, take it to the US market. That's something that can work. So you have to figure these things out where, you know what is another interesting thing that has happened. In India, in the world today, the most number of educated English people are Indians. So you will see that all the Australian, Pakistani, South African, UK-based English cricket creators are now creating specifically for India.
For India.
They are releasing an episode every day for an IPL game.
The great cricketer for is a good example.
Exactly.
Right? So
Exactly
literally
that.
two British guys talking about
Australian
the IPL.
guys.
Australian guys, sorry. Talking about the IPL.
I love them.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's entertaining stuff. There's nothing wrong with the content in any form. But, and I mean, let's not forget about the entire thing about reacting to Indian content as a reaction channel. It's a huge genre on YouTube.
Absolutely. So that is, they are also coming for your audience. Understand that. Okay. Now, because if in English, you are a creator in English from India, then everybody is coming for your audience. So you rather look at what audiences you can get into.
Yeah.
I'll give a very interesting example. I found that when I want to make content for the US, I need dramatic dialogue writers in English. Now, गोरे तो बहुत महंगे होते. Where do I find?
Wait, let's just say this is the title of the episode. गोरे तो बहुत महंगे होते हैं. But I agree with you. The cost to produce, hire someone from there is insane.
Absolutely. So now what do? Like, you can't find them in India because they are all wannabe Arundhati Roys.
Sure.
So they can't do dramatic dialogue writing in English. Not enough people have tried to hone that skill itself.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
and it is definitely a skill.
In Nigeria, there is a massive translation and dubbing market that exists. That does this only. That sits and does dramatic translations of all the Turkish, Spanish, all the shows that need to go into English. Okay, so they are English educated. They do dramatic translations all the time. And we certainly found that this is where we should be making all the translations. Because सबके सब वहीं से मिल रहे हैं who are very good at it. So these kinds of talents have figured out, genres or types of work that they can really optimize on. And these are guys you find on Fiverr. When you find 50 guys, out of which 25 turn out to be Nigerians, that's when, as a business, you realize that यहाँ पे bias है एक.
For example, I mean, the website of the 6% Club was made by a designer from Pakistan, and then I suddenly realized there are so many web designers from Pakistan.
Yes.
So if I were actually had to do some amount of web design work at scale, I would just outsource it to the entire country.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, now, this is a complete aside, but when I was doing research on this a long time back, I realized that some of the biggest standalone design tutorial channels on YouTube are from Pakistan, or are from Pakistan and entirely in Hindi. So it was basically either Urdu completely or entirely Hindi completely.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting, but made sense also. The US has so many people who are probably teaching this, and you have the big brands and all that. So it made sense that there's a huge population. And then I dug deeper, and as I thought, there were huge channels for graphic design in Malayalam, Tamil, and all that sort of thing. So,
By the way, I would want to say one thing, okay? Like, I'm not just saying that you should put out your video in all the languages. I'm saying in all the formats also it can be put out. Okay, and not just audio and video, but you can very easily train
single
an
piece
AI
of
to
content, multiple platforms.
Exactly.
I agree.
And now it's very easy. What was that guy's name? Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Gary
used to talk about it 5-7 years ago that you should be a multi-format, multi-content platform as an individual as well. But now there is no hard work attached to it. It's just one-time effort to figure out the tooling around it, design
and then the workflow of how it's going to work.
Design a workflow, and then you're good to go. You can truly do that. And that's the beauty of it today, and that's also the challenge of it today. Like, don't say I'm a comics writer, don't say I'm a show writer, don't say I'm a movie writer, don't say I'm a book writer, say I'm a writer, and I can be format agnostic.
No, we genuinely fundamentally believe that, because between the two of us, right, we are writing, podcasting, now YouTubing, we have never felt that we should be constrained by a platform, right? We feel that for this conversation, YouTube is the platform to begin with, but that doesn't mean that it will not go. We know that.
But I'm talking about skills, right? Like, if you will not make a tunes business because you are not artists, but now you are also artists. You can do visual art also. You can do editing also. Everything is, and you as any creator can be a single person media company now, where he can churn out content every single day of really high quality, of really large sizes. And that kind of prolificness is going to be an expectation from your career from here on, and that awareness is very important. Otherwise we will all be very slow, and I'm already at 37 very afraid that I can't be slow on this. Anyway. End up.
No, I think
we took pee also.
He is the only reason to end this. बात तो मैं 2 घंटे और कर लूँगा, but I need to pee.
That should be the title of the episode. No, man. I mean, the sheer amount of terrain that we have covered in this particular conversation. To be very honest, when we wanted you over here, I expected, honestly, most of the conversation to tilt more towards the content part of it. What I did not expect, and the beautiful part of it for me, was all the conversations around data and stuff like that, and marrying of two worlds, and just generally the trends in the entire thing. I think there's a dollop of romanticism that you brought in, but also a huge dollop of practicality that you're really talking about. There's a lot of food for thought. Thank you, man. Thank you for coming here, sharing your experience.
And also, Kunj, you know that we will call you again at some point, right? Like, you have sort of...
I love to talk. I will come.
Kunj is like, Mike, pakda do mere ko. So I'm just waiting. So, Kunj, when is the transition into politics going to happen? At what point?
Never.
Why, Kunj? Why?
The transition is going to happen to a mountain house somewhere where there will be enough money for me to not worry about anything and write a book with granular detail on every word being put one after the other as per how
you will write the Lord of the Rings equivalent, where one leaf is moving for 4 pages. That is how I think of Lord of the Rings. One leaf, 4 pages.
Yes.
I can't read it. I mean, I know people who love it, and I am sorry, but I absolutely can't get through Lord of the Rings in my life.
It's the most immaculate text ever, Lord of the Rings. I love the book. I love the films. It's the perfect thing that is going to happen over and over again, creating high fantasy, creating worlds. We are going into a world where it's going to be that way, and looking forward to that. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. I
Thank
had
you,
a
Kunj.
great
Thank
time
you so
talking to
much.
you guys.